Psalm 69. Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in the miry depths where there is no foothold. I have come into the deep waters. The flood engulfs me. I am worn out calling for help. My throat is parched. My eyes fail, looking for my God. These are the first three verses of Psalm 69. And as the writer goes on, reflecting on the world around him, reflecting on those who are out to get him, reflecting on God's faithfulness and praying to God and how God responds. Those first three verses really stood out to me. As many of you know, many of you don't, but as many of you do know, I have been in quarantine essentially for the last month. I know we've all been in various versions of quarantine, but I specifically got exposed to COVID and had to stay at home, not being able to go anywhere for 30 days. And yesterday, was the first day that I was able to emerge back into the world. And so I went and I celebrated and I went to the store and I really just did simple things, but did get to go and hang out and see some friends, socially distanced, of course, which was nice. But that 30 days of being stuck at home, not being able to go into work, not being able to do a lot of the things, go play disc golf even, was really difficult for me. And that got me reflecting on the different difficult things that each of us has to face. And we all face different difficult things. And just because they're different doesn't mean that each of them doesn't have a certain kind of impact on us. Some of us have faced more difficult things in this year, in our lives. Some of us have had more significant traumas, you might say, in our lives. And yet, all of those difficult things, for each one of us, has been all that we've been able to handle. Even though there's differences in the difficult things, the hardships, the traumas that have happened in our lives, they're different in that way, but they're equal in the way that they impact us, in the way that they make things difficult for us, in the fact that they raise the water all the way up to our necks. I had one friend recently say that your trauma, your difficulty, your hardships are 100% of what you've been able to handle, regardless of what they are. And so as I was reflecting on that and hearing the psalmist write these words about the waters have come up to my neck, I sink in the miry depths, it made me think about that and the difficulty. And I was reminded, actually, of the story of Peter walking out to Jesus on the water. He's moving out towards the Lord, who's called him out of the boat, says, "It's me, come." And Peter, in the midst of the storm, in the midst of everything that's raging on, has his eyes fixed on Jesus, right? And he starts moving, but then his fear sets in. He starts looking at the surroundings, looking at the circumstances. Have any of you ever done that? I know I have. Looking at the stuff that's going on and begin to fear, begin to have anxiety, begin to worry. And Peter begins to sink. Now, growing up, I loved swimming. I still do love swimming, jumping in the pool. One of the favorite things to do is just jump off the diving board. I used to just see how high I could get and then kind of drop straight down, how straight I could get, how little of a splash I could get. Wasn't really that inventive with somersaults or, anything like that. But, it was always fun to do the pencil or just walks right off as if you didn't know, that you were walking off the edge of a, diving board. And no matter what you did, even if you just kind of dropped in or did a cannonball or did a big, nice dive, whatever, you sink pretty quick. You don't really spend a whole lot of time at the top of the water. As soon as you hit that water, you're going to go down fast. Which means that Peter, when he starts to sink, he's going down fast. Okay, it's a split second from top of the water to all of a sudden I'm underneath the water. And I love in this story, and this is what I've shared with students before, is that he cries out, "Lord, save me." He's got enough time and breath to be able to say, "Lord, save me." And in that moment, at least in the way that I read that and picture that, is if he was close enough to actually have reached out and grabbed hold of Jesus, he would have. If you're sinking and afraid of drowning, you're going to grab whatever's within reach to try to help you, to try to keep you afloat. Which means that right now, Jesus is out of reach. He's out of reach. Peter cannot reach him. And it's a split second that it takes for him to sink to the bottom. Okay? Which means there's some distance between him and Jesus as the water is quickly going up over him. Where there's no foothold, deep waters, the floods have engulfed him up to his neck. He's almost out of hope quickly. And yet it's only that split second that it takes Jesus to cross whatever distance is still between them to reach and grab Peter. So my prayer for us is that if you're right now up to your neck, if you're feeling that stress, that hardship, that difficulty, that trauma, do what Peter did. Cry out to Jesus. Do what the psalmist did. Keep looking for God. Keep trusting in his salvation. And know that he is faithful. And his timing is always perfect. And he will not let you be fully overwhelmed. Sometimes we do have to sit there with the water right here. But he is always going to be close enough to rescue us when we put our trust in him.